Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Lakshmi Shimare Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Nrsimha Bhagavan ki, Jayanitai Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 39. Yadagre chanubhande cha Sukam mohanamatmanaha Nidralasya pramadhotam Tattamasam udahritam Yadagre chanubhande cha Sukam mohanamatmana Nidralasya pramadhotam Tattamasam udahritam Yadagre chanubhande cha Sukam mohanamatmana Nidralasya pramadotam Tattamasam udahritam Yadagre chanubhande cha Sukam mohanamatmana Nidralasya pramadotam Tattamasam udahritam Tadagre chanubhande cha Sukam mohanamatmanaha Nidralasya pramadotam
Tamasam udahritam.
Yadagre chanubande cha Sukham mohanam atmanaha Nidralasya pramadotam Tatamasam udahritam. Matajis? Yadagre chanubande cha Sukham mohanam atmanaha
Nidralasya pramadotam. Tatamasam udahritam.
Yeah, word for word. Yat, that which. Agre, in the beginning. Cha, also. Anubhande, at the end. Cha, also. Sukham, happiness. Mohanam, illusory. Atmanaha, of the self. Nidra, sleep. Alasya, laziness. Pramada, and illusion. Uttam, produced of. Tat, that. Tamasam, in the mode of ignorance. Udahritam, is said to be. Translation. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from the beginning to the end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be the nature of ignorance. Purport by His Divine Grace. One who takes pleasure in laziness and in sleep is certainly in the mode of darkness, ignorance. And one who has no idea of how to act and how not to act is also in the mode of ignorance. For the person in the mode of ignorance, everything is illusion. There is no happiness either in the beginning or at the end. For the person in the mode of passion, there might be some kind of ephemeral happiness in the beginning, and at the end distress. But the person in the mode of ignorance, there's only distress, both in the beginning and at the end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet mukam karoti vachalam pangulam gayate girim yakripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyameshwaram Namam Vishnupadaya Krishnapastaya Bhutale Srimate Indridumna Swami Tinamine Namo Prabhupada Pritasaya Jagannatha Yatrananda Murtaye Bhaktasukena Krishna Kirtanena Narasimhena Rakshataya Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, today we had a very interesting shloka describing the mode of ignorance and those who are controlled by the mode of ignorance. Right? It is described the one who is governed by the mode of ignorance. Right? In another place, it's described is cruel, depressed, lazy, uninspired, and a victim. Right? He has that mentality of depression. Right? He feels that everything is bad, everything is wrong, everything is happening to me. Why is this happening to me? So many other feelings come up within one who's controlled by this mode of ignorance. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, text 25, chapter 25, Krishna is speaking to Uddhava and he's describing all the different modes and people who are governed by those modes, what are the different qualities they show or they express in their behavior. And so he describes ignorance as intolerant anger, stinginess, speaking without scriptural authority, violent hatred, living as a parasite, hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, quarrel, lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression, sleeping too much, false expectations, fear, and laziness constitute the major qualities of ignorance. right? These are the different qualities Krishna is describing for one in the mode of ignorance. So you can see here, intolerant anger means that anything can set you off, right? Anything and everything just gets you so annoyed. You'll see that's why people who are drunk, right? They're I wouldn't use Shiva's name, but Ashutosh, very easily pleased, and the opposite side is very easily angered, right? So they're so happy 1 second, and the next second they can be, destroying everything and flipping out. So someone who's in the mode of ignorance, sometimes when you're sick, also you notice that feeling, like the tiniest little sound or something will just make you want to rip everything apart, because you're in that mode of ignorance. So everything is on edge, everything is annoying, everything is distracting, everything is disturbing you. Doesn't matter, even the smallest things, right? So intolerant anger, stinginess, right? You're trying to greed, keep everything for yourself. Speaking without scriptural authority, right? Anything you think has to be correct. So therefore you'll make all these philosophies and everything to justify your own wants and needs with no backing according to scriptures. Guru, Sadhu, Shastra will have nothing. No, it's all according to what I want in the moment, right? Living as a parasite, so that means you're just living off what others give you. You don't give anything to society. You don't contribute anything to your family. Don't contribute anything to the group of people you're living with or to society at large. You're just living as a parasite, just off what other people do, off other people's work, right? Violent hatred, right? You hate people with such strength that you become violent. Hypocrisy, we know. Chronic fatigue, right? You're just constantly tired, even though you didn't do anything. You're just already uninterested to perform anything. Quarrel, lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression. So depression is something very important in the mode of ignorance, because from depression, this victim mentality becomes stronger, right? This enjoying pain, enjoying suffering in the mode of ignorance is something that we derive pleasure from if we're governed by that mode. Someone who's already in that mode and feeling bad and feeling depressed, they're looking for more of that energy, because it is energy. It's still energy, right? You'll see a child, if he's not getting attention by being a good boy, he'll get attention by being a bad boy. So the mind is looking for attention and looking for energy one way or another. So if you're not getting that energy by doing something, by accomplishing something, that sense of satisfaction, by producing something, you'll get it in the opposite way. You'll get it in the way that I can't do anything, look how bad I am, I'm so useless, I'm so this, I'm so that. And you'll be petting your mind thinking, yes, you're such a sorry little kid or such a sorry little person. You can't do anything, you're so sad, it's okay, you don't have to do anything, right? You'll give yourself this energy and your mind relishes it in this mode of ignorance. So depression is something that just continues and will grow more and more because you're enjoying this depression, you're enjoying this suffering. Right? That's why you have masochists, those people who hurt themselves on purpose, right? Those people who will purposely injure, right? It's very demoniac, but there's even parents who will purposely hurt their children so that they cry and then they want the parents, right? So this need for pleasure or attention, one will look for it in every way. So if it's not in the mode of goodness, it'll be in the mode of passion. If it's not in the mode of passion, it'll be in the mode of ignorance, and that's where depression comes up, right? Unhappiness. So one is governed by this mode of ignorance, one will seek this energy wherever it comes, depression, right? False expectations. Someone will do something and think that I'm supposed to get a huge result when it's not true. You didn't do anything, right? You'll do a little bit of service, you'll do a little bit of cleaning, and all of a sudden expect the whole world to be bowing at your feet and telling you you're the greatest. Wow, so amazing. Yeah, because you're usually not doing anything. So when you do something, you have false expectations. It's obvious, no? And then fear, one is unreasonably fearful of everything and anything, right? And laziness. These constitute the major qualities of ignorance. So as Prabhupada describes in the purport, that this ignorance is, you don't get any happiness in the beginning nor at the end. This comes from another text in purport earlier in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna is describing the different modes. He says the mode of goodness is bitter in the beginning and sweet at the end. It means, the effort that you have to put in may not be so pleasant. You have to be patient. It takes time. But at the end, the result will be sweet, will be nice. Those in the mode of passion, they might do something very quickly, or they might do something in the mode of passion that is very enjoyable. but at the end it becomes bitter. Why? Let's say, for example, you decide you want to make something, you want to build something, and you do it in the mode of passion quickly, without proper planning, without proper materials, without proper time and management. And what happens? It breaks. It doesn't last. It's faulty, right? So in the beginning, yeah, you did it very fast, all good, but then at the end, suffering. Right? Wasn't there. It wasn't done properly. The initial stages weren't done properly. And mode of ignorance, you didn't do it properly in the beginning. You didn't want to do it, and it took forever, and at the end it didn't work properly. And we see it with devotees. I mean, with kids we see it a lot more. In the Gurukul we used to see it. A boy didn't want to wash pots. So then you tell him, wash pots. It'll take him an hour to be able to convince him to wash pots. Then he'll grudgingly go over and slowly start washing pots. And he'll take him like 3 hours to wash the pots instead of 5 minutes. And the whole time he's suffering. He's suffering to get there. He's suffering to start washing pots. He's suffering the whole time. And at the end, it's not done properly. His free time is gone. Everything is gone. He's suffering from the beginning to the end because of the mode of ignorance. Right? If he would have just quickly done it, he would have had all his free time. But no, suffering in the beginning, suffering in the middle, suffering at the end. So that's the nature of the mode of ignorance. Right? From beginning to end, it's suffering. So there's no point. So Prabhupada is bringing out this point in the purport. Suffering from the beginning to end, right? There is only distress, both in the beginning and at the end. This is a quality that we can recognize, the mode of ignorance. So in this material world, this is a place of dukkhalayam asashvatam, right? It's full of misery, full of pain, and we are not able to be satisfied. Doesn't matter what we do. We cannot be asashvatam. We cannot be satiated. Our desires cannot be satiated. So if one is treating all the different miseries that come to this world or come to us in this material world, we have a choice of how to react and how to deal with the different situations that may come. We may deal with it in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance, or sudasattva, in which we surrender to Krishna and say it's all his mercy anyway, and therefore we're above the modes. But us conditioned beings, we have a choice. We have a choice of how we deal with the situations which arise. It's raining. Are we going to be depressed? Oh, I don't want to do service today. I don't want to wake up today. I don't want to chant my rounds today. I don't want to do this, that, right? Or can you take it in the mode of passion? That yes, let's go do it quickly, but you do it too fast. You don't do it with proper attention, right? Or in the mode of goodness, where it's just another day. I will continue with my daily procedure just as I did every other day. Nothing is going to change. It's all proper. Right? So we have the choice to deal with every situation, any pain that comes. We get hurt, we burn, we get cut, something gets stolen, right? Something breaks down, we get sick. So many different situations, right? We have the three kleshas in this material world, adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidevika, those that come from ourselves, those come from other living entities, and those that come from the demigods or from material nature. So many problems will come, and we have a choice. How do we want to deal with these individual problems that come in our life? Do we want to deal with them in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance? And then based on that, which mode we tend to go to, we're feeding that desire, we're feeding that nature, that tendency, and it'll just get stronger and stronger and stronger. Something that comes from within us is our desires. Right, our desires that come up in the process of Krishna consciousness or just in day-to-day life, so many desires will come up into the mind. Right? Prabhupada describes it that when you're cleaning, right, you're cleaning the heart, so much dirt you will find. And unless you start cleaning, you'll never know how dirty the room is. Right? It's okay. From outside it looks okay. But as soon as you start scratching, oh my God. Right? So we have so much dirt within our heart. And when we start chanting in the process of Krishna consciousness, so much dirt will start coming up. But if we do not feed those desires and we do not pay attention to those desires, they will come and go. But if you start paying attention to them and acting on them, that's when we start acting within the three modes. Right? And so there's many desires in this material world that might come up. And our taste for the different modes or pleasure in the different modes will come depending on how we act on those desires. Right? And they always just get worse and worse and worse. For us, for example, we eat prasadam and we find it very tasty, but someone who's used to eating very disgusting things, right? Rotten things in different places in the world, you'll see some preparations are just unimaginable. How could you even eat that? But for them, that smells very nice, that tastes very nice. How is their mode of ignorance so deep that for them that's tasty? There's actually a story that when Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, he went to Burma to open a temple, It was the appearance day of Gorky Shordas Babaji, I think, and they were making a big feast, frying puris. And the neighbors were all complaining, oh, it smells so bad, what are you doing? They were frying puris and ghee. There's no better smell. I'm sorry. Puris and ghee, frying puris and ghee, it smells amazing. But they were complaining, oh, this smells so bad. In Burma, they had a preparation at that time, I don't know if they still do, but they had a preparation at that time that basically any animals that would die, they would cook into a big stew, right? And usually it would be roadkill. Whatever on the road would die or like that, they would throw into this pot and cook it. And in a special festival, they would serve this soup of all these dead animals, and it would smell for kilometers. And for them, that smelled very nice, but frying puris smelled bad. That was how deep their mode of ignorance was. And so Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur used that as an analogy that through exposure to the modes and without control, the modes just take you lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower. And so this subtle enjoyment or subtle or things in the mode of goodness actually are bad for you, and things in the mode of ignorance are good. Right? They say also this itch of desire, it doesn't stop, like the lust, for example, the common analogy is given, that if you let it take a finger, it will take your hand. If you let it take your hand, it will take your arm, right? So like, for example, you see something that attracts you, right? For example, for brahmacharis, maybe ladies, for other lusty desires, we may have greed, right? And so the first thing that will come to you is that, oh, no, I'll just look one time. I will just taste one time. It's okay, just one time. And then after that, it gets worse. It gets worse, it gets worse, and it just takes you all the way to places you cannot imagine because of that compromise. So the mode of goodness, the mode of ignorance, you have to be very careful not to engage our desires or to act on the desires that may come inside the mind, because there's no end. There's no end to where that place can take you. And that is the purpose of Vaidhi Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, that we do not know how to act. We do not know how to act on our desires. And so Krishna, so mercifully, through Guru Parampara, he gives us a perfect process in which we can engage these desires and engage our senses, and then very clearly defines which actions should be taken and how you should take the actions, and how this material world is so dangerous, and you have to follow the process perfectly. And in that way, we can get our desires and our habits, the way we speak, the way we talk, what we talk about, all these different things, we can finally get it back into the proper stage of pure goodness, Krishna, the same process that he's following, the same way that he does it. But if we act on these desires that come up within our mind in the improper way, there's no end to where these desires can take us. Yeah? Lust, anger, greed it's the road, some of the roads to hell. And when you start acting on those desires, and when you start acting on those impulses that come within the mind, it doesn't end. It's like if you have, I don't know if you ever, in India it's very common, you get a mosquito bite. And you get a mosquito bite, and if you just leave it for 3 minutes, it goes away. The itch goes away, the pain goes away, everything goes away. If you start scratching it, you'll just give it a little scratch. 2 minutes later, you want to like rip your arm out. Right? It's just a little bit more, and then you're just bleeding, and you're like, ah, right? That itch of desire, it just gets worse. So you think, no, I'll just satiate it a little bit, it's okay, it's just a little scratch. No, it doesn't work like that. Right? So the same way, activities in the mode of ignorance, or impulses that we have, lust, anger, greed, whatever may come into our mind, we have to be very careful how we deal with it and not to give it attention. Just the other day, I was listening to a lecture by my spiritual master, Srila Indradumna Swami, and he was talking about how anarthas, they come into the heart, they come into the mind when we start cleaning. And he gave the analogy of an unwanted guest in your house. What's the best way to get rid of an unwanted guest is not to feed them. So you imagine you have someone in your house and they say, okay, prasadam time. You say, no, sorry, Prabhu. No breakfast today. And they said, oh, okay, I'll wait till lunch. Sorry, Prabhu. No lunch. So they wait till evening. Okay, where's dinner? Sorry, Prabhu. No dinner. Next day, no breakfast, no lunch, no dinner. You go 2-3 days like that, you'll see they'll leave your house. They're not going to stay much longer. So when these thoughts come into our mind the same way, you have to say, sorry, no attention today. So they'll wait a little bit longer. Next day, they might come into your mind again. Sorry, not today. No, not today. This thoughts that come into our heart or into our mind are very natural. Even Biblamanda Thakur, I don't know if you know, if you've heard of him, he was a very, very exalted acharya in our line in devotee. The story how he became a pure devotee is very exalted and is a very great lesson for us. He was very much attached to a prostitute. He was very much attached to this prostitute, and he would go daily to her. Daily he would go to her. Doesn't matter the circumstances. So the prostitute, seeing his situation, he was a very exalted devotee before, but he fell down, right? He was a brahmana, he was all learned, he learned everything. But seeing his state, this prostitute was, taking pity on him. How would I say, completely controlled he was by his lust. So one day it was pouring rain and it was flooding. And in the middle of the night, Biblamanda Thakur showed up to the prostitute's house. And the prostitute said, "How did you get here? The road is flooded." He said, No, I grabbed onto a trunk and I came over the river. And she said, "There was no trunks. There's no trees here. It must have been a dead body that you grabbed onto." And he said, "How did you climb up the window?" He says, "Oh, there was a rope." They looked outside, it was a snake. He grabbed onto a snake, he didn't notice. And he climbed up on the snake. So she said, if you had even an ounce of the determination you have to come and see me, if you had that desire to go to Krishna, to be Krishna conscious, you would be a devotee in 1 second. She gave him that instruction. And it hit his heart. He took, wow, it's true. I'm so controlled. I'm so completely controlled by my desire to be with this prostitute. If I had even a little bit of that determination and complete, overwhelming desire to be with Krishna, I would be. And so he paid obeisances to the prostitute. He took that prostitute as his guru. And even in some of his songs, he writes that, by her mercy, I have come and I have become Krishna conscious. I have come to the association of devotees so many times. And so taking the good instruction of the prostitute, he became a very great devotee, Biblamanda Thakur. So in one of his songs, he's saying that when the thought of material enjoyment comes into my mind, I spit on it. Right? In the association of devotees while practicing devotional service, if the thought, and when, he doesn't say if, he says when the thought of material desires and enjoyment comes into my mind, I spit on the thought. So that means even at his stage of pure devotional service, the thoughts come. But what's the difference between him and us? Is that he's able to spit on the thought, and we continue thinking about it. We let it sit, we let it ponder, we think about it, we give it some attention, we feed the unwanted guest. And therefore, we are engaging in that anartha, and we're maintaining that anartha. The mind, the holy name is showing us, do you still want this? And we look at it and say, yeah, maybe just a little bit. I want it a little bit. And another thought comes up, maybe don't get rid of it just yet, right? So we have to completely surrender, completely give up. I was listening to a lecture by Radhanath Swami just now, and he in another lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, he was talking about how this material world is full of suffering, and unless we fully surrender to Krishna, there's no chance. There's no chance for us to deal with the dangers and with the problems and the anarthas that are there in our lives. And he gave the analogy of the story of Gajendra. Right? Gajendra, he went to this beautiful lake, right in the mountains of the Himalayas, beautiful lake full of lotuses, and it was amazing. He was there enjoying with his many wives. And then the crocodile came and grabbed his leg, right? He couldn't see the crocodile, it was under the water. Everything looked so perfect. Boom, the crocodile hit. And he was wrestling with the crocodile, wrestling, such a powerful elephant he was, wrestling. But he's inside the water, so the analogy is given that we are not in our constitutional position. We are not in our place where we're supposed to be. We're in this material world. And we think we're all powerful, just like Gajendra did. We think we're powerful enough to control and to take care of this material nature, that we can fight off Maya. But no, we're in their territory. We're in Maya. We're in Durga, in the dungeon of this material world. We have no power. And so just as the crocodile, he was more powerful. And so only when Gajendra finally gave up and said, Krishna, you please save me, was he able to be liberated from the danger. But he tried with all his might. He was trying and trying and trying. So we cannot think that without the mercy of Krishna, without the mercy of the holy name, we're able to conquer Maya and conquer these anarthas. We cannot give them attention. We cannot give them the chance. And then in that way, we'll be able to get rid of them. In that way, we'll be able to not give them any attention, not give that unwanted guest any food. And then in that way, slowly, the anarthas, one by one, will be leaving our heart. And then we'll be able to cross over the modes of material nature. Right? So if we can learn something from this purport and from this verse, is that the mode of ignorance, it's very powerful. All the three modes are very powerful, not only ignorance, but especially the mode of ignorance is very desirable almost. We may laugh at it now, but we've all been in that situation where we enjoy the mode of ignorance, where we enjoy that energy, because it is energy. We enjoy it. We can feed off it. So at some point in our life, we've been in that mode where we've wanted and we've stayed in that mode of ignorance, even when we theoretically knew we shouldn't, right? We should get out of it. Still, we enjoyed it. We liked it. So we can relate, and we should be on a very careful guard not to let ourselves come to that position ever again. And in the future, when different energies or different temptations or different situations come in our life, we'll know how to deal with it, or we should be very introspective and think about, how am I dealing with the situation? Horrible calamities might come, right? Humiliation, so many, you might become very poor, poverty. So many different things might come up in our life in the future, and if we deal with it in the mode of ignorance, there's an unending well of darkness where we'll sink into, of pity, self-pity, and lamentation and depression, where we won't be able to come out of, what to speak of becoming Krishna conscious. But if you deal with everything, and just like Gajendra did, finally, giving up everything and, okay, Krishna, you please help me. This is the situation I'm in. Then we'll be able to, little by little, come out of the situation and properly deal with anything that comes in our life. Yeah? So I think these are the points that I wanted to bring up. Yes. If there's any questions or comments, it would be wonderful.
I'll wait for the mic. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Yeah, it's on. Thank you so much. Nice flow, nice points. I just was wondering, I definitely agree with you, we should not feed those desires when they come, yet we see that there are two extremes. And, just to put it in simple words, the Grihastha ashram is technically a place for legal or justified sense enjoyment until we
engaging our desires.
Engaging our desires until we purify them.
Yes.
So there seems to be a balance, or maybe there seems to be, let's say, a brahmachari, 10 years, he's still getting these thoughts of earning money or marrying a woman and so on, and then he eventually gets married and go through the process of brahmachari, grihastha, varnaprastha, and so on. So could you please speak about
the balance?
The balance, or not taking the extreme of suppressing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good question. It's described, that's why the process of Krishna consciousness is so perfect, that it very clearly gives us a way in which we can engage our desires, right? It gives us a platform in which we can engage those natural and ingrained tendencies and propensities we may have in a regulated way, right? Regulated regulated, what's the word used? Sense gratification, I think it's used, right? Prabhupada describes it like that. That these tendencies that we have, animalistic almost, you can say, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? We regulate them by the ashrams, and we regulate it by following the proper rules and regulations for each individual ashram. And in that way, we can purify them. So some tendencies we may have that are completely adharmic and completely wrong, and those ones, yes, we just have to give no quarter, right? And when we have those tendencies, then we should seek shelter and put endeavor into making sure that we purify those ones. And those that can be dovetailed and used in Krishna's service, or used in our ashram and purified by the means of Vaidhi Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, those ones we use, right? Material life or material enjoyment is needed for us to be able to last in this process of purification. We have many desires, we have many tendencies, we have many things that we want to do to gratify our mind, to gratify our senses. And it's natural, right? But there is a parameter in which some of those are bona fide, and some of those can be used in Krishna's service, and some can't. So when those desires come up that we can use, we should use them. we should immediately use them and find a way to purify them. But when those come up that cannot be used, then we have to be very careful to immediately get rid of them, and to get rid of them in the association of devotees by revealing our mind in confidence to those who can help us. And therefore we'll be able to surpass it. But Grihastha ashram is the place, I would say, the most dangerous place, because it has such a powerful part of sense enjoyment, and that expression of sense enjoyment in Grihastha ashram is predominant when one doesn't have Krishna in the center. Right? Then you become grihamedi. You're no longer a grihastha, you're a grihamedi. You're simply surrounding yourself and engrossing yourself in sense enjoyment, rather than keeping Krishna in the center and understanding, as you said, the grihastha ashram is meant to purify those desires and those anarthas. That is the purpose of grihastha ashram, to purify that desire for lust, that desire for power, that desire for wealth, and all these different things that might be there. And so, like you said, the balance is there, and it's given in the sastras, that when you have desires that can be used in Krishna's service, then those are used in a very natural way. And those that are not able to be used in Krishna's service, then we have to immediately avoid, and we have to get rid of in the association of devotees and by revealing our mind. Does that make some sense? Yeah, but yeah, we have plenty of desires that we can use, right? Even for brahmacharis, there's many desires that they have, and it's good for them to utilize that, because then the other ones won't come up, right? Like Prabhupada describes that for brahmacharis, physical activity or physical exertion is important, because then that energy that's naturally there in youth, if it's used, then there'll be nothing left to use in the wrong way, right? The idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if you're too tired, if you're finished from your day's work, you'll very peacefully go to sleep without any extra thoughts and extra desires coming into your mind, right? Some of the qualities of the brahmachari is described that when when his pillow hits the head, before it even hits the pillow, he's out, because he's so fully engaged himself in Krishna's service. Right? He had not a second to think about himself and everything else, and he's fully happy. Right? But when a grihastha goes to bed, what's he thinking about? He's like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to make sure this. How's my wife? How's my kids? Are they healthy? Is everything okay? What am I going to do tomorrow? What about this? What about that? No, there's no worries. Everything is peaceful for the brahmachari, and the brahmacharini is the same. It's a very peaceful life. And so in that peaceful mode of life where they have no other worries, they can focus on Krishna consciousness. Brahmachari, that person chasing Brahman, the person who's seeking Brahman. If you're not seeking Brahman, you're going to be seeking something else. Right? And these desires that come with the misuse of that youthful energy that we have are completely controlling. Right? That's why celibacy is such an important part of brahmacharya, is because when that desire for lust, or that lust arises in the heart, it completely takes over the mentality, right? That's why Rupa Goswami, he describes in his Vijñapti Panchaka, there's that verse, Yuvatinam yutayuni yunam cha yuvato yata. So please, my Lord, let my mind be completely engrossed and desirous for you, just as a young boy is desirous for a girl and a girl is desirous for a boy. That complete enamoration. There's nothing else. There's no other thought. Day and night, all you're thinking about is that person, how they look, how they talk, how they walk, everything about them. So Rupa Goswami is saying, my Lord, let me be that conscious of you, just as the minds are attracted of a young girl to a young boy and a young boy to a young girl. Right? So that desire is completely controlling, and it's completely overwhelming, and there's no space for anything else. There's no space. So that's why this compromise, the thing that I mentioned, compromise cannot be there when you're dealing with lust, anger, and greed. There cannot be compromise, because as soon as you let even a little bit in, it will just take up the entire space. There'll be nothing else left. There'll be no space for anything else. It's completely controlling. And so when that desire arises in the proper way, once someone is ready for grihastha, he's able to engage. Okay, you have that desire. This is your situation. This is where you can act. This is where you can be. This is the way in which you can act. And therefore use that desire for companionship, partnership, engagement together in Krishna's service is very beautiful and very powerful. and can be very helpful for our devotional service. And therefore we can use those tendencies and those desires in Krishna's service in Grihastha ashram. That makes sense, bro? Yes, bro. Wait.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your lecture. That was very inspiring, even though I came late. Now I want to add a question to that, because then it's very nice in Krishna consciousness that we can dovetail our desires in the service of the Lord, but it should not stay with the activity itself. And so how then, the question is, we can set the motivation also right. So if we are, for example, distributing books, or we are doing creating some palatable dishes, or playing Mridanga, then how can we not only do this because we like to do it, but also to do it for the Lord? Or how does the process work in this way?
By constant reminding ourselves, right? This is Sakam Karma Yoga. You're performing devotional service with desire for the result, right? So I'm playing Mridanga because I'm good at playing Mridanga, and I like the attention I get when I play certain beats, right? I cook certain preps because I get better feedback from those preps, so I'm going to cook those preps because then I get more fame, more glory. I distribute books because I'm better than him and I want to keep that position, right? It's all fine, it's all good. But if you're conscious of that and you're working on that to try to purify that, the same engagement is good and will purify it, right? But you have to be conscious of it. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be introspective. You have to think for yourself. You can cheat everyone else, you can't cheat yourself, right? So if you think, okay, why am I actually doing this? Right? Is it just because of this? Is it just because of that? Or is it, do I have a desire actually to please Srila Prabhupada, to purify myself? And then feed that fire rather than everything else. Try think more, try focus yourself more. Right? When you're chanting, keep that in your mind. And then, okay, for the first 20 minutes of book distribution, you'll be more conscious of that. And then the rest of it, you'll go back to your a competition state. Even competition is still very good. I don't want to say that it in that way, but it's still very good. Understand? But the more you're able to focus on the Krishna conscious aspect of it, the more you practice it, the more you'll get it. Yeah? So it'll become more and more common. It's kind of like focus. Focus, for example, is also a tendency that we need to practice. So when we're chanting, the first, we start with 1 minute. We start with one round. We start with one round, the focus, one round. The other, 15 might not be as focused, but at least one round fully focused. Then 2 rounds, then 3 rounds, then 4 rounds, then 5 rounds, and let it be consistent, right? And then don't be whimsical that one day, okay, no, today I'm not focused at all, no rounds I was focused on. No, then hold that position, 2 rounds I'm focused, fully focused. And then increase that little by little, sitting in class. Okay, first 10 minutes I want to be fully focused on what's going on. And then increase that little by little. So in the same way, when you have these activities that you're performing, and you know that you're performing them with desire for the result, however subtle it may be, try purify that by focusing more on what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to be thinking, how Krishna conscious you're supposed to be. And then in that way, increase that little by little, and consistently increase that, right? If you're not going forward, you're going back. Right? If you're not putting energy into doing something better, you're not gaining anything, right? So that's why every single day, if you're trying to improve yourself, doesn't matter how little bit, you're going to eventually get there. But if you're letting days pass without nothing and just, oh, it's okay, I'm doing this, but it's okay, then you're not going to get anywhere. Does that make sense? Yeah, don't let a day go by without a little bit of energy into those areas you want to improve on, right? For those people who are learning skills or some art, for example, every single day they'll put 5 minutes into some activity that they want to learn, right? Doesn't matter, an instrument, some art, they want to draw, they want to learn some martial, they want to do something else. They put a little bit of energy every single day. They don't let a day go by without putting some energy into there, and eventually they'll get there. So in the same way, we want to, if you have those tendencies to perform those activities with desire for the result, that's fine. Continue performing that devotional service, but be conscious of what you're trying to build, what you're trying to get rid of, and what you're trying to fix. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Sounds encouraging to hear this from our Mridanga teacher.
No, that's why the beginning pranam mantra, if you read it and if you think about it, you're very conscious that it's not you, right? Balaram is eternally playing for the Lord, just like in cooking. There's millions and billions of Lakshmi Devis cooking for the Lord, preparations that we cannot imagine. Nrsimhadev doesn't need our chapatis. Nrsimhadev doesn't need our pakoras and our burnt rice and whatever else we might do wrong. He does not need it in the least, right? So if we're very conscious of that and we remind ourselves of that, then you can think, what am I actually giving the Lord? I'm giving my effort, my energy, my love. That's all. Right? It could just as easily, Nrsimhadev has millions of Lakshmi serving him all the time. He's just giving us the opportunity. That's why he's here. Right? So in the same way, Balaram is eternally playing for the Lord, everywhere as a mridanga. He doesn't need us. We're given the opportunity to serve the holy name by playing the mridanga. So if you keep that humble mentality always when you're doing it, then it's devotional service. Then it's, you're actually contributing something. Otherwise, yeah, check out this beat and check out that beat. Yeah, look at me. Here I am. Love me. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much for the lecture. One thing for me I didn't understand, when you mentioned depression, I have, for example, many friends or people that I know that everything is good in life and suddenly here they have depression, but everything is good, but like chemical imbalance and so like just people get into this. Is this related to the mode of ignorance you mentioned, or is sort of like related to karma that it's like meant to be? How do you see that?
Okay, so there's like clinical depression, those things that it's actually diagnosable and it's something that may come from parents, right? Hereditary, right? That's more like a disease. So that would be more to do with karma. But for those people who engage in depression, let's say, or suffer from that way because of just the tendency from childhood or from some trauma that happened and they were never able to get over it, is because they're enjoying enjoying is, the right word. It sounds wrong, but it's the right word. They're getting something from that energy. They're deriving some very gross but pleasure from that energy. And so unless they are given something higher that they can take away that desire to continue enjoying that, it's very difficult for them to give it up, right? The only way you can give up a bad habit is if you're able to find something of greater enjoyment, greater value, right? So that's the only way you can give up desire for something else. You only give up something for something better. That's the only way this material works. But we may not understand it's better, but by practice, by consistent energy into that, then we'll gradually develop desire for something better, right? So we have so many material desires now that we're suffering. We're actually suffering because of those material desires. We're not doing what we want to do because of it. For example, all of us want to be healthier. All of us want to do something. All of us want to come for Mangalarti every day. We want to, but we're suffering from ignorance that we're not able to do it. And we feel bad, right? For example, okay, some of us want to work out and get stronger, get more fit, get more healthy. But every single day, it's so tired, I'm not going to do it. And we feel bad. We suffer because of it. We would love to be doing it, but we're not because of ignorance. And we feel bad, and it's bitter in the beginning, bitter at the end. We didn't like it when we're doing it, we don't like it at the end. And we would love to just be fully inspired and just do it. All of us would love to be like that. But we can't because we're suffering from this ignorance. So in the same way, this suffering that someone will get into, this depression like that, and they're deriving that energy from it. And unless someone is brought to something better, it's very difficult to give that up. Right? Depression is it's already a very low grade of ignorance where it's very difficult to come out of that. And it takes time, it takes energy, it takes consistent energy. But it is in the mode of ignorance. Then you have those things that are karmic or diseases, right? That's something else. That also can be fixed, right? Psychologists can help fix it. So many different things can help fix it. But it's still the mode of ignorance, but it's the karma that someone has to go through that, and he really has very little control over what's happening. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's just like a trauma happens in your life, and because of that you get depression. It was the karma that got you into the trauma. Right? But we have the control to choose how we deal with it. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much.
You have a question? Or?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, you said in the beginning about the the sannyasis who making like puris or chapatis.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you spoke about some people who were outside and
They didn't like the
they
smell.
didn't like
Yeah.
it. Like for me, it looks like upside down.
Yes. Yes.
And how you describe it now about like karma, like it's just karmic life, and you said now we have just to get the right intention to.
There has to be a desire to change. Yes.
Yes, the desire. Like, so it seems like for me the taste has to be developed inside. Like just I started to be vegetarian. I don't go anymore to McDonald's or something like that, because when I went like past the McDonald's, I don't feel any energy like, oh no, I don't need to go there or something. It just passed by and I don't feel any more attraction to it.
Yeah.
So I got a higher taste like that.
Yes.
And it developed inside me, and the question is how
How did that happen?
how did that happen like that?
It's through two. One is you got exposure to something way better, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, you develop distaste for the previous thing. Understand? You became disgusted with the previous thing you were performing or eating, right? Meat, for example, right? You develop distaste, right? So one has to develop that same distaste for something someone wants to get rid of. So this material energy or material enjoyment, one has to develop distaste, actually become disgusted with this material energy, with the material enjoyment. Then one will become fully attached to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, you'll be constantly going back and forth.
So it's actually very good to get tasted by
Exactly. Right? Distaste has to be there. Complete disgust. That no, this is completely something I don't want. I never want to touch again. That's why Biblamananda Thakur could spit on the thought when he would think of material enjoyment, because he was completely disgusted with it. But until you get to the complete disgust, yeah, you'll, like, everybody enjoys a blissful kirtan, right? Yeah, so wonderful, everything. But then go back to material enjoyment. You had so much enjoyment in the wonderful kirtan. It was such a high, it was so wonderful. I wish I could be like this forever. But then next day, 1 week later, 1 month later, you go back to the material enjoyment, however gross, depending on each individual person.
because they're not completely disgusted
Exactly.
by it.
Exactly. They still think that there's some enjoyment there. They still think there's something to derive, right? So those people who are still in the transitional phase, they have to be very careful. Like those people who are addicts, for example, of alcohol, they won't go to bars. They'll go to nowhere where anyone's drinking, because they know that they have the propensity that if given the opportunity, they will fall back down, and they're very scared of that, and it's very healthy that they avoid any situation that will put them in that. So we have to be the same way. If we have a desire we want to get rid of, we have to be almost scared, right, to not put ourselves in a situation. Prabhupada said, you're right, it's very dangerous not to be afraid of Maya, right? To think, oh, it's okay, I can give it a little attention, I can give it a little energy, it's okay, right? This compromising tendency that we have is very dangerous, right? Alcoholics know it. They'll never go anywhere near anything because they'll know where it can take them. One little sip, one little drink, one little tablet, where it can take them. And so they'll avoid it like the plague, because they're so disgusted with who they were when they used to do those activities. So they're trying their best. So we have to be the same way with gross material enjoyment that we really want to get rid of. We have to slowly develop complete distaste in it. And once we reach that full attraction to Krishna consciousness, then we'll be more secure. So in the same way, you could develop higher taste at the same time you develop distaste for what you were previously. And therefore you can go by McDonald's, you can go by someone eating meat, and it doesn't bother you. But for someone who still has attachment, they'll be, ooh, and then they'll think, oh, I remember when I used to, and it was so tasty, and this and that. But that distaste and attraction has to be at the same time.
This is the balance.
The balance. And so one has to be developing both at the same time.
Therefore is this Grihastha ashram.
Well, Grihastha ashram,
Develop this balance.
The Grihastha ashram is there to engage those desires and to purify them. The only way we purify them is by having Krishna in the center. So everything we do, right? We get money to maintain our houses, but Krishna is in the center. We have Krishna. It's all for Krishna. It's for devotional service. We have children, but it's to make them devotees. And the wife and the husband together. I mean, being a parent just in general is a very selfless thing. Right? There's no me. No, it's okay, I have to get up now because the child needs this. I have to do this now because the child needs that. I can't eat because the child needs this. Everything, child comes first. Wife and child comes first. Everything. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. You have to, this is a child, this is a being that's fully dependent on you. So it's a very selfless nature. So even not in Krishna consciousness, parenthood can, if used in the proper way, make one very selfless. And so on top of that, if you add Krishna consciousness in, it's even faster purifying that nature of I and mine and my own enjoyment. Make sense? Okay. Jai. Okay, we'll finish there. We're way past time. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi.